notes have a big game or a clean game.
Both, or they can't win. So I don't think this is an either-or situation. We can show them. I've shown it a number of times. The Chiefs in the turnover battle. Your only hope of beating the Chiefs is win the turnover battle.
Yeah.
If you tie them, you lose. The one win again, the turnover was a pick six. If you beat them in the turnover battle, you probably lose, but you got a decent chance. 14-9 is 60%. So he has to play a clean game because I believe the Chiefs will, or at least Patrick will. And then he also has to produce at a high level. So I don't think the Chiefs are too good for the Eagles to just be able to be like, we're going to run the ball, play good defense, not take any chances. I think that has worked for Philly against the bulk of the league, and that's been their recipe. I think they went into the Washington game thinking, man, Jaden's on such a heater, we're going to have to open it up. And they did, and Jalen was excellent. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to have to be more of that for them to be able to win this game.
There's been a lot of basketball takes, and they didn't have anything for Philly even yesterday as well on Monday. It was just either basketball and a couple like Kansas City Chiefs takes, and it was actually a welcome break. It was honestly was. At first I was like, oh, what the heck? This is the Super Bowl week. Like, what are we doing here? I get the Luka trade is big and all that, but like, come on, like, what are we doing here? It was more about like Mahomes versus Brady being the GOAT and stuff like that. And then I see this take and I go, oh, you know what? This was actually a nice break to not have to listen to some of this type of stuff, right? Because like, oh, they can't win unless Jalen Hurts has a huge game and a clean game. Jalen Hurts is gonna have to throw for 380 yards and 17 touchdowns. It's like, okay. The way how the Eagles play works against every other team but the Kansas City Chiefs. It's like, okay. Again, I've already said this a million times, that I think the Kansas City Chiefs are a great team. And I think that the Eagles need to play great ball to win. Okay? But it's still the framing of these conversations and then the answers given by Nick Wright. Like, even saying, I think that the Eagles felt that they were going to need a big game from Jalen and open up things because of the Washington Commanders. No, the first offensive drive, the first offensive play from Saquon Barkley was him ripping off a 60-plus yard touchdown. Just stop. Did you even watch that game? Just stop. Then the week before, it was a literal snowstorm. And then the week before that, the Packers were just giving the ball to the Eagles. And so it was smart football to be like, yeah, we're just going to be nice and conservative. We don't got to do anything crazy. As Tom Brady himself highlighted, this is good situational football. Understand that you have the lead. You're in control of this game. The Packers offense can't get anything going. So yeah, 3rd and long or whatever, we're just going to hand the ball. If he goes, I know the fans are booing, but like, this is the smart play. It's called smart football. Why is it when the Eagles play smart football, it's because of Jalen Hurts being a liability? And that when they now play bigger football, it's, well, they knew they had to because Jaden Daniels was on such a heater. Just stop. Stop. They're yet to have a real conversation about the Eagles versus the Chiefs. You realize that, right? I was so happy because Monday, and I cover NFL Live, Get Up, and all that type of stuff. Now, NFL Live is definitely more like X's and O's style, football conversation, right? They definitely zoom in more. This is definitely more like, as people talked about, the barbershop and all that. And again, I favor these shows more than the X's and O's just because you can more casually watch them. It's a little bit less in depth with. Quite frankly, I appreciate more often than not. I always have that conversation with a couple other people who are very much deep in the X's and O's, and it's like, as much as I love X's and O's talk, like, I can only talk about that so much. Like, I like to do both. I enjoy doing both, but I do love the narrative construction and having those conversations. It's something that I think that I'm also a better suited for. So, I get it. And I like having these back and forth conversations. I'm also not going to pretend like I know more about X's and O's than, like, literally Andy Reid, or Bill Belichick. So it's like, like, who am I at that point? But it was such a welcome, because I did the NFL Live where they just talked about kind of the Eagles defense and how it matches up with the Kansas City Chiefs offense, et cetera, et cetera. And it did just feel like it was so much more substance. Heck, even Mina Kimes was coming out there saying some interesting stuff, and you're like, okay. And I'm not necessarily a Mina fan, I confess. But just this automatic nonsense that we just kind of keep getting inundated with. And again, I also keep saying, at the end of the day, I don't know how this game will unfold. I could see, and sorry, Eagles fans, I could see the Eagles laying an egg and the Chiefs win this game very convincingly, or I could see that the Eagles are able to impose their will and be really dominant, despite everything that Nick is saying, that the Eagles will be able to do exactly what they want to do from a game plan perspective, and that Eagles offense will really step up and be able to shut down the Chiefs, offense. So again, like, I don't have any real strong predictions for this game. I actually was just talking to someone about this in the comment section, where I was just like, I still got PTSD from the Broncos Super Bowl. I think it was against Seattle, and you're like, all right, this is going to be a great Super Bowl. And then it was just like a blowout in a minute. Same thing with the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Bucks. I was so excited for that Super Bowl. I couldn't wait. It was during the time when everything was kind of weird, and I was like, all right, let's go. Football, football, football. And then it was nothing. It was just like, well, this isn't an interesting Super Bowl. And I was rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I was furious. Chiefs fans don't believe me, but I was furious. I had to call my sister-in-law because I was so mad, and I was, like, so angry and just needed to vent about everything else that was going on in life. So it was just like, you just really have no idea. It could be a great game. It could be a close game. It could be an ugly game, but a close game. It could be an ugly game, but a blowout. I mean, who really knows? But this whole, like, well, the Eagles need them to do this. They need to do this, this, and this. Otherwise, they got no chance against the Chiefs. Well, I think Patrick Mahomes will play a flawless game. It's just made up nonsense. It's not even actual predictions. Like, that's the thing. It's not actual predictions. It's just nonsense. Like, that's what it actually is. Even this question, more important for Jalen, big or clean game. So he can play a clean game but not a big game, and then they can't win? Based off of what? This is what I'm trying to get at. What are you basing this off of? Like, what are you basing that off of? My old college roommate and my best friend, current best friend now, still to this day best friend when he was my old roommate years ago, like, he would say that. We had another roommate who would just kind of, like, say random stuff. And he would say, well, I believe this. And my roommate would be like, my friend would be like, what are you basing that on? Like, it's just like a random thought that popped into your head. What are you basing this off of? If the Eagles are able to do what they want to do offensively, run the ball, have a clean game, work the ball to AJ and Dallas and et cetera, move the chains, convert fourth downs, score touchdowns, and it could be a very clean game, but not a big, fancy, big game, why would that not lead the Eagles to then win? Like, please tell me how that makes sense. Because Jalen Hurts playing a clean game would indicate that the Eagles' offense, or what is he, playing a clean game but going 3 and out? Like, is that what we're saying? Oh, he can play a clean game but go 3 and out. Like, I don't understand. So it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. You would think on Tuesday, just a handful of days before the Super Bowl, have a little bit more grounded talks about this. We already got past the Monday of who's the GOAT, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, and that's exhausting to me. I do find that exhausting. I'm like, I don't care. Why are we talking about Tom Brady right now? We're talking about the Eagles and the Chiefs, right? But now, Tuesday, week of the Super Bowl. Let's go. Although last time I checked, the Super Bowl is not at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I could be wrong, but I don't believe it is. Maybe coverage starts then, but certainly not the game. And now we're talking about, Jalen Hurts needs to have a huge game in order for them to win. And it's just like, again, it's painting the picture that the Eagles aren't a top team. That they've just kind of been dragged into the Super Bowl. That it was just a series of really fortunate events for the Eagles to find themselves in the Super Bowl. And it just does not make sense. If the Eagles do what they want to do offensively, they can still be very conservative, relatively speaking. Conservative, relatively speaking, not relatively speaking. And they have a clean game. Jalen Hurts isn't turning the ball over. They can absolutely win. Not to mention, and again, I don't want Jalen Hurts to turn the ball over. I don't want him to take risks and risk that. I'm a huge proponent of playing clean games. I've said that again and again and again and again and again and again. But the Eagles' defense is now good enough where if they do turn the ball over, they can mitigate some of that pain that could be inflicted. That is the benefit of having such an awesome defense. I'm also on the record saying again and again and again, I think this is so much more about the coaching of Andy Reid and Spags versus this Philadelphia Eagles roster. And that more of it will come down to Fangio being able to, can he slow down Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? And less about Kellen Moore out scheming, Spags. That for offense, it's really going to come down to, does Kellen Moore just not drop the ball with the game plan because he tries to do too much or adapt too much or abandon, too quickly, however the game unfolds, and more about the players themselves. Is A.J. Brown getting open? Is he fighting through, is Jalen Hurts, is he able to, find a lane and rip off a 15-yard run? Does he hold on the ball for a second too long and now he takes a sack? Like, it's more about the players themselves. So that's why it's kind of this asymmetrical. There's lots of games that I see where I'm just like, this is a coaching battle. This is Sean McVay versus, Kevin O'Connell or something. Like that's what I'm really excited to see. What do these coaches have in store for each other? Sometimes it's really the rosters. It is the quarterbacks. It's like which quarterback's going to be able to ball, who can step up more. And all of this, but I think that the Eagles versus the Chiefs in this regard is a little bit more asymmetrical. It's not Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. Heck, I think they know it, which is why they're barely even talking about it. Think about how this was think about just the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes in the Buffalo Bills versus the Kansas City Chiefs. That was the whole talk. There wasn't talks about what would Brady do against, the OC for the Bills. What will he do against Spags' defense? How will Andy attack Sean McDermott? There's none of that conversation. It was all Mahomes, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Mahomes, Josh Allen. Same thing for the Bills versus the Ravens. It was Josh Allen versus Lamar, Josh Allen versus Lamar, Josh Allen versus Lamar. There's no real conversation about Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. None. It's just constantly like, well, can Jalen Hurts play good enough? It's like, okay. Didn't we already do this? I'm sure those takes get a lot of views and clicks and all of that. I get it, but doesn't mean you have to keep going to that well. We can have a little bit more broad of discussion. I don't know. And we could still do it in a narrative way, in a less X's and O's based way. We could say, what would Fangio's mentality be going into this Super Bowl against Andy Reid? How should Kellen Moore kind of approach this going up against such a seasoned veteran like Spags? This is Kellen Moore's biggest game in his entire career. Does he need to do something different, or should he continue with how he's been approaching these games? Like, that's all still narrative, fun barbershop talk. We can still have those conversations. It doesn't constantly need to be Jalen Hurts, big game or clean game. Well, he needs to play like the greatest quarterback in the history of the world. And anything less than that, they're done. Okay, sure. Sure. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles? What do they need out of Jalen Hurts? Do they need a big game or a clean game or a both game? They need one of those infamous both games. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.